Hello, good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Tanya Francis. Coming up tonight, Sadiq Khan announces a £5 million fund to help reduce violence in the capital, offering young people in all 32 boroughs a chance to get involved in a sport and development programme this summer. The Lionesses are warming up for a big semi-final match against Sweden this evening. We'll speak to former England captain Carol Thomas ahead of the match. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes. Plus, heat, eat or browse. New research shows 93% of Londoners believe having access to the internet is essential as the cost of living crisis worsens, as one phone internet provider offers free data to those most in need.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me.
And the gospel choir that played for the Queen during the Jubilee announced a new gig date here in the capital. Well, all of that to come, but first tonight, our top story. The Mayor of London has announced a £5 million package to help increase opportunities for young Londoners and steer them away from getting into criminal or violent activities. Well, Sadiq Khan announced his violence reduction unit is investing the money in councils across all 32 boroughs to help deliver an early intervention programme to drive down violence this summer. Well, mentoring and youth services and a sports programme will be rolled out to 15,000 young people. The Mayor is also supporting the local Village Network, a free app designed to help connect youngsters to activities in the area. Well, the Mayor was speaking at a boxing club in North London about the funding announcement.
One knife crime is one knife crime too many. One homicide is a tragedy that changes that family's lives forever. What we're doing this summer is investing an additional £5 million to give young people constructive things to do. There's now an app which I'd encourage parents, carers and young people to use, the local Village Network app. More than 2,500 facilities available to young people across our city this summer. We've got to be both tough on crime, supporting the police when the government's making massive cuts, but also tough on the causes of crime, giving young people constructive things to do. And I'm not complacent at all. What we've seen, a reduction in youth violence, a reduction in knife crime, a reduction in knife crime with injuries, a reduction in gun crime, a reduction in burglary. This year, we're seeing a reduction in teenage homicides and homicides. Look, I'm not complacent. We are making progress. But clearly, 12 years of austerity have had a big impact on policing, but also giving young people constructive things to do. But I think we are turning the tide.
Well, Sadiq Khan there, and staying with the Mayor, he also expressed how he would be incredibly proud for the capital to be the hosts of the 2023 Eurovision Song Contest instead of Ukraine. Well, he announced London will be putting their hat in the ring on Monday when the hosting bid opens.
Well, firstly, I'm gutted for Ukraine. Ukraine, because of the barbarous aggression from Putin, can't host the Eurovision in their own country even though they won it. Sam Ryder came second, we came second, and so it falls to us to host it. I'd be incredibly proud for London to host the Eurovision Song Contest. We are a city that is proud of its diversity. We're an open city, we're incredibly welcoming, we're inclusive. We're also pro-Europe. The fact that we left the European Union is a source of real sorrow to me. We're outside the EU, but we're not outside of Europe. And having a Eurovision in London, where we've got thousands of Londoners of Ukrainian origin, thousands of people from Ukraine who fled Ukraine, would be a great way for us to have a Ukrainian party, a Londoners party. We could have the best of Ukraine, Londoners from diverse backgrounds, and who knows, we may even win it.
Well, there you have it. London will be putting themselves forward as one of the candidates to be hosting Eurovision Song Contest next year. Now, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss will face each other again tonight in a second evening of battling it out on TV to become the next leader of the Tory party and our next Prime Minister. Well, the pair will again be given an hour to make their case to Conservative members, who are the only people eligible to pick the party's new leader. About 160,000 Conservative members will take part in a ballot, with the winner announced on the 5th of September. Now, to some other news from across the capital. A 58-year-old man has been charged with murder after a man of the same age was fatally stabbed in a pub in Ealing and was pronounced dead at the scene. Well, police were called to the Star and Scorpion on Uxbridge Road at close to midnight on Saturday. Timothy Simon is charged with his murder, and the police are asking for anyone who might have seen what happened to come forward. A man who was shot in the hand in West London by the police was in a car that has been linked to a murder investigation in Southampton. Officers stopped the car on the King's Road on Sunday night, and a single shot was fired from a police weapon, hitting one of the men in the car. Well, the Independent Office for Police Conduct is investigating if the weapon went off accidentally. The injured man is still in hospital, while the other 3 men that were in the car were all arrested. And in total, 5 men have been arrested in connection with the murder of a 19-year-old man in Southampton, which also happened on that Sunday. Now, MPs and business leaders have joined forces to urge unions to call off the national rail strike expected to happen tomorrow. Well, around 40,000 RMT workers are expected to walk out for 24 hours in a dispute over pay, or rather an ongoing dispute. Only around 20% of train services are expected to run tomorrow. And although TfL is not part of this industrial action plan tomorrow, there is expected to be disruption on the Elizabeth line and the London Overground and the wider underground network. So make sure that you definitely check before you travel. On the topic of transport and the potential that you might be sat on the tube for a little longer than expected tomorrow, TfL have announced that they are launching their very own book club. Now, could this finally be the thing that breaks the ice on the morning commute? It'll cost you just under a £5 to join, and the first set of books to choose from are out already. You can check out the TfL website if you are interested in getting involved in that initiative. Now, the World Health Organization has declared that the monkeypox outbreak, which has infected more than 17,000 people in at least 75 countries, is a public health emergency of international concern. Well, here in London, Chloe Orkin, who is a professor of HIV medicine at Queen Mary University and Barts Health NHS Trust, has been explaining some of the key things that you need to know about the disease and the impact that it's having.
For many people, it's a mild illness, but we are seeing more severe presentations. And the severe presentations are around the oral symptoms in the mouth. So people presenting with really bad ulcers in the tonsils, the mouth, and then also in the anus, really, really painful lesions. And in those people are being admitted to hospital, and the admissions are actually lasting for quite a long time. We need to try and get it right. We need to be honest and clear. But we need to work with the communities around what is the most helpful way of offering information and education and support, and indeed prevention to the communities.
Well, some information there on the symptoms and treatment for monkeypox, as it's declared a health emergency by the World Health Organization. Now, let's bring you this. Barnes Bridge in West London, which has not been used for over 125 years, could be transformed into a garden space and walkway covered in lovely plants. Well, architects have mocked up these images of what it could look like as negotiations are happening with Network Rail and Richmond and Hounslow councils. We've seen this kind of proposal massively fail in the past. The Garden Bridge, which you might remember, cost £53 million to plan, with the idea scrapped in 2017. But the town centre manager for Barnes has said that they have support of the councils on both sides of the river and have put in place a great team of contractors to get the project up and running. On to sport now, and England are 90 minutes away from a home Euros final as they take on Sweden in the semi-finals this evening. The Lionesses battled to a 2-1 extra time win against Spain in the quarters. It means the tournament favourites are one step away from making history in reaching the final, which would see a record attendance at Wembley for a women's Euros match. Well, England manager Serena Wiegman can't wait for tonight's semi-final and is itching for kick-off.
Yeah, very excited, of course. We did some recovery after the last game. Got fresh again. Then we started to prepare for the Sweden game, and everyone's so focused and so excited, and the level of training has been really high again. So it's really nice, and can't wait to play tomorrow.
Well, that game there happening in just under 2 hours at 8 o'clock. Later in the show, we'll hear from the most successful Lionesses captain in history as we preview the game. Let's now take a look at the weather, though, just before we go to a break. Dry and mostly clear this evening, lows of around 17 degrees overnight. Wednesday will be dry and sunny at first. It'll cloud over a little during the day, and there's a chance of the odd isolated shower. Thursday it will be mostly cloudy with a chance of a few patches of light rain, low 20s for both, and then Friday slightly brighter and warmer. Right, it's time for a quick break, but in the next part of this London Live News programme, we'll hear about the new law making it obligatory for landlords to install carbon monoxide alarms and the penalty they'll face if they don't.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
welcome back to the show. Now, new stats have revealed 93% of Londoners believe access to the internet is essential to living their life, as the vast majority also confirm that the cost of living is causing them considerable financial stress. Well, as the crisis worsens, the decision whether to heat or eat is affecting millions. Though one of the most basic things of today's society is the internet, and that's the first thing people will say that they are going to lose when faced with the dilemma of what to spend their money on. Well, I spoke to Helen Milner from the Good Things Foundation, a charity which helps people to get online and feel more connected and able in the digital space.
We know that about 1 in 5 of Londoners would rather go hungry than to have no mobile data. And we also know that almost everybody in London, so 93% of Londoners, think that the internet is essential for living their life. And I think the pandemic actually brought how essential the internet is really into sharp relief. And the cost of living crisis is making those choices even harder, because the cost of everything is going up, and you've got to work out where you're going to cut those costs.
I want to challenge that, though. I'm not sure if, using your mobile phone is more important than eating or keeping warm on a freezing cold London, winter's day. Where has this sort of cultural shift come from, where we are so reliant upon our phones? Yes, they can be incredibly useful if you're job hunting or if you need to keep connected and in touch with people, but so is eating.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to stress, I'm saying mobile data, but as your only form of accessing the internet. So this is about internet access. This isn't about having a phone as well as having fixed line. This is about your one and only contact with the outside world through that internet data. And as you said, you can't search for work nowadays without having access to the internet. You can't apply for benefits. You can't prove, you can't access your universal credit website. Lots of GPs nowadays, you have to make appointments online, and lots of children have to do their homework online. And therefore, it's moved from being a luxury to being an absolute essential that everybody should have access to the internet.
So the kind of functional side of it and how it can help you structure your life is one element. But I can imagine just the feeling of wanting to be connected to other people, especially during the pandemic, would be another reason, why there's such a reliance upon using mobiles and or having that data. The charity that you work for looks to create that kind of digital equality. If we think about digital, it's so hugely vast. What would you define that as, sort of digital equality?
So we want to make sure that everybody can afford access to the internet. And we also work with Virgin Media O2 on a data bank. Think of a food bank, but for data. And so that's for people all across London, and working with the Mayor's Office and the London the LOTI, L-O-T-I, the London Office for Technology and Innovation. And we have 63 local places in London, so libraries, community centres, small local charities, where people can go and access that national data bank and the London data bank. And they can also get help with devices, with a laptop or a tablet or a phone, and also, really importantly, make sure that they're getting support with the skills to how to use the internet to really benefit their lives, but also keeping safe online as well.
I mean, I'm sure we can all relate, when there's an update on your phone, even if you are tech savvy, it sort of takes you a day or two to kind of get used to it, let alone if you're not used to using tablets or these kind of devices. As an extension of that, this free data that you or the network providers are offering, 20 gigabytes, how far will that go in terms of helping people feel connected, being able to apply for jobs, being able to use maps to get around London?
It goes a pretty long way. If you could send something like 130,000 emails without attachments and download around 350 songs, that kind of gives you a sense of the data. And a lot of the services that people need for looking for work, etc., or using maps to get around, doesn't use that much data, so you're going to be fine. Clearly, if you're going to stream TV all the time. It's something like 800 minutes. But this is really for people who have no other internet access. As you said, that connectivity with other people is so essential, as well as using those essential services. So 20 gigabytes is really generous, and that's from O2 through the National Data Bank.
Well, that was Helen Milner there from the Good Things Foundation. All of the information on how they can help is available on their website. Now, a new law is set to come in place in October, meaning all landlords will have to supply a carbon monoxide alarm in their rented properties. Research shows that 1 in 6 homes have levels of the gas that exceed World Health Organization's limit. And this new law should help to change that. Well, I spoke to Rob Lyon, who's been campaigning to get the law passed for years. We spoke about the dangers of not having an alarm and the penalty that landlords will face if they don't comply.
Yes, we've been campaigning for a change to carbon monoxide regulations for many years, and we're thrilled that now this legislation has now taken the responsibility away from the public necessarily to actually now put the onus on landlords for rented properties. So any rented property, social housing or privately rented, now by law must have a carbon monoxide alarm in place by the 1st of October this year. So it will protect millions of homes.
And I know that you've been campaigning for this for a while now, which would indicate to me that there's an issue here. You know, why is it that you were so passionate about wanting this, you know, to get this law in place? Are there many households in London and across the UK that don't have carbon monoxide alarms?
Yeah, so from a piece of research, 1 in 6 properties in London had a high level of carbon monoxide over above the World Health Organization sort of levels. And as a national average, 54% of homes didn't have a carbon monoxide alarm. So we can see there's a clear issue here. And the problem with carbon monoxide is it's known as the silent killer because it shows no symptoms. So people won't know they're being poisoned. So symptoms are it's invisible to the human senses, if you like. So you might be suffering nausea, headaches, feeling unwell, but these can often be mistaken for other things. And only a carbon monoxide alarm will let you know that you could be poisoned in your home.
We've seen in the news, you know, recently, especially with the heat, you know, how effective having an alarm in place can be. And this is slightly different, as you say, it's a silent killer. But, you know, now having the onus on a landlord to do that, you know, would you not argue that perhaps if it was that dangerous that, you know, an individual should take it upon themselves to do it anyway?
Absolutely. I've been campaigning for everybody to be aware of the dangers of carbon monoxide and have carbon monoxide in their homes for must be coming on for 10 years now. It's something I'm very passionate about, and for the cost of around £15 is sort of an average for a carbon monoxide alarm. It's quite a small price to pay to protect your family from what is, again, as we said, is known as the silent killer. So yeah, brilliant. The regulations are here now to protect a huge percentage of the population, but it's still a bit of a miss. If you look at Scotland, for example, all homes by law must have a carbon monoxide alarm. In England, it's actually only the rented properties. So there's still work to do, but we'll keep campaigning until all homes are protected.
Now, people might not be able to tell in the early stages that there is a carbon monoxide leak, but, you know, how does that manifest later on? Like, what should people look like? Are there any symptoms that anyone would feel?
Yeah, so the symptoms of carbon monoxide are often described as sort of flu-like symptoms. So you could feel slightly nauseous, headaches, but as it gets more severe, you could have difficulty breathing, even loss of consciousness. One of the issues with carbon monoxide is it's so unknown that you may visit your GP, and because it presents itself as something that could be mistaken for the flu, there's every chance you'd be sent back home and told to, go to bed, rest, exactly to the source of the problem. That's why it's such a dangerous gas, because it presents itself in lots of different ways. Only a carbon monoxide alarm will really alert you to that danger.
You know, it can sometimes take a while for people to be aware of these small changes in the law, especially if there isn't a big announcement or a big campaign. I imagine that will come later on in the year. But for anyone who might be watching who is a landlord, if they aren't to install carbon monoxide alarms in their rented properties, is there any sort of penalty that they might face?
Yeah, so it's very important. So the 1st of October is a very hard deadline to make sure that people have protected their rented properties by that time. And there's a fixed £5,000 penalty for not doing so. So if you're a landlord with multiple properties or a social housing provider with thousands of properties, you can imagine that fine will really stack up. So I think I would make sure that landlords act now. And equally, if you're a tenant in a property, I would certainly raise this with your landlord sooner rather than later, so they've got time to protect you now, not wait till October, be protected now, but equally make sure they've done what they need to do before the deadline arrives. We're aware that on the back of the campaign, that people will have lots of questions. So the campaign has its own bespoke website. It's coalarmssavelives.com, and on there we have all the information about where to find alarms. Make sure you buy a certified alarm, because unfortunately there are products you'll see off the sale online that may not be up to the necessary standard. How to install alarms. On the whole, we generally recommend you need to look for the right British standards, make sure the product looks symbols like the kite mark. And in terms of installation, always look at the manufacturer's installation guidelines to make sure you're installing it in the right place.
Well, that is Rob from Project Shout there. You can check out the campaign online. There's also lots more information on which alarms to buy and how to install them. You're watching London Live News with Tanya Francis. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. And the Lionesses will shortly be taking on Sweden for a chance to get to Wembley. Carol Thomas, the former England women's captain, will be on the show ahead of the match.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back. A reminder of our top story this evening. The Mayor of London has announced a £5 million package to help increase opportunities for young Londoners and steer them away from getting into criminal or violent situations. Well, Sadiq Khan announced his violence reduction unit is investing the money in councils across 32 boroughs to help deliver an early intervention programme to drive down violence this summer. Well, mentoring and youth services and a sports programme will be rolled out to 15,000 young people. The Mayor is also supporting the local Village Network, which is a free app designed to help connect youngsters to activities in their area. The Mayor was speaking at a boxing club in North London about the funding announcement.
One knife crime is one knife crime too many. One homicide is a tragedy that changes that family's lives forever. What we're doing this summer is investing an additional £5 million to give young people constructive things to do. There's now an app which I'd encourage parents, carers and young people to use, the local Village Network app. More than 2,500 facilities available to young people across our city this summer. We've got to be both tough on crime, supporting the police when the government's making massive cuts, but also tough on the causes of crime, giving young people constructive things to do. And I'm not complacent at all. What we've seen, a reduction in youth violence, a reduction in knife crime, a reduction in knife crime with injuries, a reduction in gun crime, a reduction in burglary. This year, we're seeing a reduction in teenage homicides and homicides. Look, I'm not complacent. We are making progress. But clearly, 12 years of austerity have had a big impact on policing, but also giving young people constructive things to do. But I think we are turning the tide.
Well, Sadiq Khan there, and staying with the Mayor, he also expressed how he would be incredibly proud for the capital to be the hosts of the 2023 Eurovision Song Contest instead of Ukraine. Well, he announced London will be putting their hat in the ring on Monday when the hosting bid opens.
Well, firstly, I'm gutted for Ukraine. That Ukraine, because of the barbarous aggression from Putin, can't host the Eurovision in their own country even though they won it. Sam Ryder came second, we came second, and so it falls to us to host it. I'd be incredibly proud for London to host the Eurovision Song Contest. We are a city that is proud of its diversity. We're an open city, we're incredibly welcoming, we're inclusive. We're also pro-Europe. The fact that we left the European Union is a source of real sorrow to me. We're outside the EU, but we're not outside of Europe. And having a Eurovision in London, where we've got thousands of Londoners of Ukrainian origin, thousands of people from Ukraine who fled Ukraine, would be a great way for us to have a Ukrainian party, a Londoners party. We could have the best of Ukraine, Londoners from diverse backgrounds, and who knows, we may even win it.
Well, there you have it. London will be putting themselves forward as one of the candidates to be hosting Eurovision Song Contest next year. Now, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss will face each other again tonight in a second evening of battling it out on TV to become the next leader of the Tory party and our next Prime Minister. Well, the pair will again be given an hour to make their case to Conservative members, who are the only people eligible to pick the party's new leader. About 160,000 Conservative members will take part in a ballot, with the winner announced on the 5th of September. Back to the semi-final of the Euros now, as we are less than 90 minutes away from kick-off in Sheffield as the Lionesses prepare to take on Sweden for a chance of getting to Wembley to play in front of a record-breaking crowd for the women's game. Well, Carol Thomas is the former England women's captain and is the most successful Lionesses leader in history. She spoke with Henry about tonight and how the ladies can continue her legacy as trailblazers for women's football.
Is this arguably one of the most important games or biggest games for the Lionesses, with a chance to reach a final at home?
Absolutely, it's definitely one of the biggest games in recent times, and I think they've got every chance of going through.
Compared to previous England teams, what I've noticed is the pure self-belief from the players, from this set of players, from Sarina Wiegman. Now, when they were 1-0 down against Spain, the players said afterwards they knew that they would win. That just shows the immense self-belief amongst this group.
Absolutely, and I've said all along in this competition that Sarina's got a great squad of players there, and her backroom staff are second to none, having met them at St George's Park. So there's great belief there, and belief in Sarina and what she's trying to get the ladies to do. So I think they'll just go on and keep that belief within the team. Yeah.
What else has impressed you about the team?
It's just the way they're together as a team. They're all like one big happy family, to be quite honest. And they were like that when I met them a few months ago. Everybody gets on with everybody. There's no one's ever left out. And respect for Serena and her backroom staff, and I think that comes out on the pitch as well.
And the atmosphere when the second goal went in extra time was just phenomenal, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. I was lucky enough to be there and be at Old Trafford for the first game. The atmosphere at these games is unbelievable, and the support for the women's team, the England team, is incredible. It's really great to see.
So with that win, England have got through to the semi-finals against Sweden, another very good side. This will be a tough test. So what will the team have to do to be wary of, and what will they have to do to beat Sweden?
Yeah, I think that they will treat them with the respect that they deserve. Sweden's got a good record, even from when I was playing against the England team, but completely different situation now. And the going back to what Serena's done with her squad, the feet's firmly on the ground, and I think if they can make a bit quicker start than what they have done in a couple of the games, not let Sweden into the game, that will be a great thing to happen on the night. But I've got every confidence that they'll go on and win, to be quite honest.
That's good to have some confidence. I'm looking forward to it myself. And of course, we don't want to put too much pressure on the Lionesses, but where do you see women's football going? Of course, we're seeing better attendances in the Women's Super League. We're getting better TV rights deals. All the best players want to come here. If they were to go on and reach the final like you think they will, and potentially even win it, what will that mean for the game in this country?
It'll be incredible. I mean, the game's just going from strength to strength, to be quite honest. From when we got to the final in '84, how the game has improved and gone on and on is incredible, and it's great to see. And it'll be good for grassroots football, to have the Lionesses win this tournament and to show them as role models for the younger girls that are coming through to play football. That will be tremendous, and it can only go on and on in this country and worldwide, to be quite honest, because it's been such a great tournament.
It certainly has. You just touched upon it there. Back in 1984, you captained England to the final of the first ever Women's European Championships. Looking ahead now, how does it make you feel proud at all, considering where the Lionesses have gone in the last sort of 30, 40 years?
Absolutely. So I'm so proud for myself, not only being the captain of that '84 team. We were the first ever senior men or women's team to get to a European final, and we are so proud that the Lionesses are where they are nowadays. Today, it's just great, and we just like to think we were that small stepping stone to help women's football where it's reached today, to be quite honest.
You certainly were, and I believe you've been speaking to the Sweden captain from that very match back in 1984 before the tournament, and also walking to Old Trafford from Crewe. So can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was lovely to meet up with Annette again after 38 years. We did a walk through history with LinkedIn, who are one of the sponsors of the Euros, and we set off from Gresty Road at Crewe, which is now the Mornflick Stadium. Because we played our first semi-final against Denmark there back in '84, which we won 2-1. So over 2 days, we walked with not only Annette, there was a few inspirational women footballers, and we were just talking about our experiences and basically just trying to highlight the importance of having visible female role models, for the youngsters to look up to, and they can then believe that they can achieve what we've done, basically. And it was great to be part of that campaign.
Well, there you have it, and that match, England-Sweden, 8 o'clock this evening at Bramall Lane. It's time for a break, but next in the show, if city life is getting a bit boring, you can now head to the Wild Wild West and live out your cowboy or cowgirl dream. We'll be bringing you the latest from some new immersive theatre here in London.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello and welcome back to the last part of the show for this evening. Now, whether you want to pan for gold or kick back in the saloon, you'll be able to release your inner cowboy or cowgirl with our next guests. Collab Tavern is hosting an immersive Western called The West here in London. Henry has been speaking to the creators of the production, who promise it's raising the bar in the ever-popular world of immersive theatre.
We've got escape rooms, we've got murder mysteries, we've got all sorts. We've got some world-class, I've been told, cocktails. So it's basically a show for everyone that you can come down, and if you fancy wearing a cowboy hat, it's very much encouraged. So you can have a rootin', tooting good time.
So Charlotte, so this is an immersive experience, as Bertie said. That's what Collab Theatre specialises in. So why bring the Wild West to London?
So it's actually through a lot of market research that we were doing. We were using our social media platforms and interacting with our audience that's on there and asking them what they wanted to see. And the majority of the answers were a Western show. they wanted cowboys. So we thought we'd give them cowboys.
That seems fair enough. Absolutely. And you mentioned that they're encouraged to bring to wear cowboy hats and things like that and dress up.
Absolutely encouraged to dress up.
But you don't have to.
Yeah,
we get a lot of phone calls of people being like, do we have to dress up? But if you're coming straight from work, of course, you don't have to.
Yeah.
We have got hats that you can wear. But you get a better experience, especially if you come on a Saturday and you can sort of get ready with your mates and get dressed. It's quite a fun sort of adds to the show that we haven't. We and it's great. It's great for us, and I think it does give you a better experience. Mm-hmm. But it's not. We're not going to throw you out.
So when I was doing some research, Bertie, you said that this does something that no other performance has ever done. So I think you know what's coming. What will you be doing?
What is it? It actually gives away the ending.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those annoying. But it's sort of mechanically, we're getting the audience involved because as CoLab, we're quite keen to have every level of involvement that audiences want. Because I think when I started in immersive theatre, I hated being interacted with. And I just wanted to sort of be left alone and just watch what happened. So we always want to have a section for those type of people. And then when I got more involved in immersive theatre, I wanted to get really involved and sort of start, talking to actors and working out mysteries and doing those kind of things and making the games work for me. And that got really exciting. So we provide that one. But then there's only a certain level that can reach. So we've actually unlocked a sort of third tier for what we would call like the hardcore immersive audience that have done loads before and are really engaged with it. And this is a sort of section that we're now sort of opening and unlocking to give like a very, very immersive and very sort of tailored experience to those audience that want it. So that's what we're doing without trying to give away too much because it will ruin the ending if we say what it is. But it's just quite an exciting level of engagement that if you want to do it, it's there for them.
Charlotte, this is from CoLab Theatre, as we've mentioned, and that was started 10 years ago now. But we've seen in the last few years, immersive productions have really sparked the interest of people here in London. So what is it about this style that you think captures people's imagination?
I actually think that it's just quite cool. And people enjoy playing games and they enjoy talking to other people, and it's quite nice to just step into a different world and be someone else and talk to other people within that world. And I think once people started realizing that this was a thing, it just started becoming more and more interesting because one person would bring their friend along and then that friend would be interested. And then from there, the bigger IPs and the bigger companies started making work and introducing people more broadly to the area. And things like Gatsby and Punch Drunk have always been around. And
it kind of, I think because it sort of talks to people a little bit more. It's that kind of you never come away from an immersive experience having sort of an unsatisfying time. It can be a bad experience, but it's still weirdly satisfying because I think there is that social element that you're not yourself for 2 hours. You're a character within a world, and that just releases so many inhibitions in a lot of people that you normally have if you go to a cocktail bar or a restaurant or something. You never talk to anyone else in the room. But for these things, if you want to talk to people, you can. Yet you're doing it without all the inhibitions and that kind of social awkwardness that usually exists. It's sort of like a very freeing experience. So I think that's why. Well, it's why people come back as well. I think they like that sort of element of it.
Well, there you have it. If you fancy something like that, then it's on at the CoLab Theatre until the 1st of October, so you've got all of the summer to catch that. Now, a London gospel choir who have been on the scene for nearly 40 years are set to perform in the capital. They were originally set up in 1982 with the aim of spreading peace and unity through their music. Well, they performed at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and also sang the national anthem for the celebrations. We spoke to the founder, Basil Mead, to find out more. Let's take a look.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
We are
premier community choir, gospel choir. We are celebrating 40 years. It should be a whole year of celebrations. We are very proud that we carry the name of the London Community Gospel Choir. Even though when we travel abroad, people say, "You guys from America?" We say, "No, we are the London Community Gospel Choir." And we're very proud of the fact to be showing the diversity of London, showing the quality of music, particularly music that comes from the Black community, the Black church community. And it incorporates all people, all peoples that are in London. We're very, very, very proud of it. It was formed because they were during the late 70s, early 80s, gospel music was very vibrant. The churches were all sported a choir of some sort or size. And we said, wouldn't it be amazing if we just combined our units? Most of the choirs were about 20, 25, up to 30, 35. It'd be great to pull our choirs together, form a mass choir, hire a venue, maybe one of the churches or another building, and celebrate together, forgetting the labels of the different organizations we belong to. That is where the idea began. It was not to form a choir that would have 40 years history. From 53 members, I think we had on the stage at the time. Within a few months, we were 110 strong, because people just wanted to be part of this new initiative. It was different to what they're accustomed to in their churches. And almost immediately, we began getting invitations to perform in non-church events, which was unheard of back then. So you could imagine the backlash when this so-called religious, holy organization of young people, well, it wasn't an organization yet, just a gathering, a collection of young people, started performing in events that were not church-based. So it caused quite a lot of conversation and challenges that I think it excited us even more. Just inspiring to have done and worked with people like Madonna, McCartney, Elton John, Like a Prayer, Madonna, going back to Madonna in Hyde Park. The amount of really huge things we've done. The very first Live Aid, when AIDS first kicked off and the people became aware of its impact on the world community, whether you were Christian or not. We were there with all of the George Michaels, the Freddie Mercury, Elton John. The list just goes on. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. I want to feel what love is. Amazing song. We were at Wembley with Foreigner on the stage, dressed in white robes like angels. And when the light hit the choir, because we're in dark before that, the chorus came in, the audience erupted. Remember, those are amazing stories for us. The list goes on.
Well, that's the London Community Gospel Choir. They will be performing on Sunday, the 7th of August in Walthamstow. Let's just bring you a reminder of what's happening with the weather now. Dry and mostly clear this evening, lows of around 17 degrees. Wednesday will be dry and sunny at first, but it'll cloud over a little during the day, and there is a chance of the odd isolated shower. Looking ahead to Thursday, it'll mostly be cloudy with a chance of a few patches of light rain. Low 20s for both, and then Friday, slightly brighter and warmer. Well, that's all from us this evening. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. with more from across the capital. Remember, we will also be keeping you up to date on our social channels, so check us out on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a nice evening.